If you've got a teenager who's lazy and unmotivated, what can you do to get them to start really applying themselves? It can be so frustrating to parent a teenager who's not living up to their potential, especially when you can look at the situation and see that if they would just put in a little more effort, they could really be setting themselves up for success so much better. Maybe they're squandering opportunities that they could really be taking advantage of with just a little bit more hard work. But when you talk to them about it, they just don't seem to get it. Maybe they even get mad at you when you try to give them advice on how they could work a little harder or take better advantage of the opportunities in front of them. We're going to break down what is often happening here when parents and teenagers find themselves in this situation. I'm going to dive into the psychology that is driving that type of lazy, unmotivated behavior. And I'm going to show you why it is that so many of those conversations don't seem to go your way as a parent. We're then going to walk through some specific techniques and strategies you can use to get a lazy teenager motivated and help them really change their mindset and start setting better goals for themselves. I'll give you some examples of exactly what you can say, walk through some different scripts and scenarios, and hopefully leave you feeling prepared to go have some conversations about this with your teenager. The first thing we need to really talk about is this whole idea of your teenager being lazy. If you find yourself thinking of your teenager as lazy and unmotivated, that's actually a really problematic view to be having of your teen. The thing is, that's your interpretation of their behavior. Lazy and unmotivated are labels that you, as a parent, are putting on your teenager based on their behavior. These labels are inherently judgmental. The problem is that your teenager almost certainly doesn't see themselves as lazy. When they see you labeling them this way, or when they even feel that you're judging them as lazy, they really have two options. Either they can accept that label, change their view of themselves, and say, okay, I guess I am lazy. Or they can reject the label. I'm not lazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And the thing is, people want to maintain a positive self image. We want to think of ourselves as good people. We don't want to attach negative labels to ourselves. So it's not realistic that your teen is going to accept the label of being lazy. And actually, you wouldn't want them to. Think about it. That's defeatist. Would you want your teen to have this view of themselves as, I'm just a lazy person. I just don't work hard. I don't care about things. This is not a helpful self image for them to have in any way. And they don't want that kind of a self image. So when they feel that you're judging them as lazy, you're coming to them saying, hey, you really need to work harder, you're not putting in enough effort here, or whatever kind of code words you're using to call them lazy, they're going to resist that label. What this is going to look like is your team is going to come up with their own story in their head that justifies their behavior. So maybe the deal is they're not getting very good grades. They're not putting in very much time into studying and doing their homework. As a parent, your view is this kid is lazy. You have one job to be a student, to do well in school, and you're not doing it. But you seem to find lots of time to hang around with your friends and do nothing. What you have to understand is, as a teenager, I can easily resist that label. For instance, I could tell myself the story of it's not that I'm lazy. I work really hard at practicing the guitar, working out, growing my TikTok. It's just that I don't care about the work that you want me to do. I think school is BS. I don't like these classes. I don't like my teachers. I don't like my homework. I'd rather put my time and energy into something else. So there's a set of behaviors happening. The teenager is not doing their homework. That's the objective reality. Homework is being assigned. Teenager is not completing the homework. But what we have now is two different stories happening about that behavior. The parent story is, wow, this kid is lazy and unmotivated. The teenager story is, I'm really motivated about some things. I just don't care about school. And what this creates is a situation where the teenager feels unseen. You totally don't get me. Here you are thinking I'm lazy and that I just need to work harder. You're totally invalidating and not seeing all the areas of my life where I do work hard. You're putting this label on me. You're seeing me in this way that I do not see myself. That's not who I am. And now you're going to come in here and try to tell me how I should live my life and what I should do differently when you don't even get me at all? No, thanks. Don't want your advice. Not going to work. So if we want to make some changes and we want to really get through to our teenager, We have to find a way to cut through these two conflicting stories that we're both having in our heads about the situation. We have to boil down to the specifics of what is actually going on. What's the real behavior that is being exhibited? The behavior is kid's not doing his homework. Behavior is she's getting a C in chemistry. Behavior is failed the last history test. This might seem like semantics. Yeah, okay, call it whatever you want, but this is still a problem and it needs to change. But this is not just semantics. This is really important. As long as your teenager feels unseen by you and you have this totally different view in your head of who they are than they do, they're never going to listen to you. You have zero influence with that individual. So before you head into a conversation to talk to your teen about their behavior, you need to do some work yourself to reframe this whole situation. I recommend that you take the time to deeply think about places in your teenager's life where they are not lazy. What are some aspects of your child's life in which they are super motivated? Maybe it's out on the sports field. They run harder than any of the other kids. Maybe it's a video game they play and they can put in hours and hours without even taking a break. Maybe it's creating content to post on TikTok or Instagram. Your child is not lazy. They're just motivated about different things than you want them to be motivated about. The second mindset shift we have to put into place before we go talk to our teenager about this is the idea of whose decision it is. Who ultimately should be in control of your teenager's life? And the answer to this has to be your teenager. It's their life. You can make sure they have all the information. You can make sure they know what the consequences are if they behave this way or that way. But at the end of the day, the decision about how they want to live their life is up to them. You can't make the decision for them. And no matter what they decide, you have to love them anyways. If you're in this place right now of thinking of your teenager as lazy and unmotivated, this is also a form of conditional approval. These are negative labels. What you're really saying is, hey, the way that you're behaving right now, I don't like that. When you behave this way, I think badly of you. I feel badly towards you. If you were to behave this other way, then I would start to attach more positive labels to you. I would feel better about you. I would think more highly of you. The problem is, this is the definition of conditional approval or conditional love. If you want to have a real deep relationship with your child, we got to get rid of that. So when you go to talk to your teenager about this, you need to make sure to separate in your language the behavior from your story about the behavior. So you could say, hey, I want to talk about your homework. Hey, let's talk about your history grade. I got to be honest with you. When I hear from your teacher that you're not turning in your homework, I start to feel really scared. My heart starts beating really fast and I get so worried. And I notice my brain starting to get carried away with all these stories about what's happening. I tell myself stories like, he's so lazy. He's blowing his shot at getting into a good college. He's ruining his chances at having a happy life. Or maybe it's when I hear about your grade on your last test, I start to get angry. I feel really mad. I start to tell myself all these stories about how you should have done better. You should have taken more advantage. I tried to offer you help and you didn't want it. And I have to catch myself and notice all these stories that are happening in my head. Lead with an emotion, a real emotion, not I feel misled. I feel let down. I feel disappointed. These aren't emotions. These are cognitions. You want to lead with an emotion. I feel afraid. I feel hurt. I feel scared. I feel frustrated. I feel angry. Focus on the behavior and then talk about the story that plays in your mind. This way you can get it out, but you're still separating it and you're acknowledging that this isn't a fact. This isn't real. This is a story happening in your mind. Maybe you want to talk about why you think that story is happening. You could say, I think the reason that it makes me so scared and that I start to tell myself all these stories about how you're throwing away your potential is because I realize in my own life how I threw away a lot of opportunities. How if I would have worked harder at some things earlier in life, I could have done so much more. I like what I'm doing now, but there was a time when I wanted to do something else and I wasn't able to do it because I hadn't worked hard enough. And when I see you getting this kind of a report from your teacher, I get so emotional. I get so worried that something like that might happen to you. The more you can be vulnerable in your communication here and not judgmental at all, but sharing your feelings in a way that's really vulnerable. And this is hard for a lot of people. If this is hard for you, acknowledge that this is difficult. I really want to talk about this with you because I'm trying to get better at sharing my emotions and being vulnerable with my communication. And it's something that I know I haven't been very good at. And I want you to know that I'm sorry about that and I'm trying to get better. I'm not having this conversation with you because I want to attack you or because I'm trying to be mean or bully you at all. I'm telling you this because I'm having these feelings and I think it's really important for me to express them to you. In the past, I haven't always expressed my feelings to you. I've kept them inside, and I don't think that's been good for me or for you or for our relationship. And I want to have a deeper relationship with you now. And that means that we need to be able to share these things. The last thing you could do is actually acknowledge that your story that you're telling yourself is not fully true. You could say, and the crazy thing is, I know that you're not lazy because I see how hard you work at building your TikTok videos and the amount of energy and attention to detail that you put into the content that you make is honestly inspiring to me. You work so hard. I see the hours and hours that you can put into your video games. And I know that in a lot of areas of your life, you're extremely motivated. Once you've done this, now you've removed the judgment. Now you've expressed your feelings. You're now being vulnerable. You're being open about your feelings with your teenager. Now maybe it's their turn to share with you what they're feeling. Maybe they don't want to say much. Maybe you could just say after all that, instead of coming in here and telling you what to do or how to be, I just wanted to start a conversation with you. It's obvious that something right now is not working, is not going well. It sucks to be spending a bunch of time being forced to do something that's not inspiring you. And the impression I'm getting from your studies is that you're not really excited about them. What's your impression about everything that's been happening? Listen and ask questions and try to understand their perspective. Don't jump in with judgments or say, but don't you know that's going to cut off so many options for you? Or don't you know that goes on your final report card? Just let them express whatever's going on and say, yeah, I get that. That sounds really hard. Let them talk as much as you can get them to talk. Try to understand what's going on with them. And then say, hey, I'd love to keep talking about this. Let's think about it. Let's try and come up with some ideas of what could make this better or what we could be doing differently. And let's circle back in a couple days and keep chatting. If you keep having conversations like this and you make your teen feel understood and validated, and you come at it from the perspective of working together to help them get to a better place in their life, to understand what they don't like about the current situation, not tell them what's wrong with their situation, but find out what they don't like about the situation. What do they want to be different? And then work with them to help figure out a solution. Don't try to solve the problem for them or solve it yourself. It's going to work best if you can help them to come up with the solution on their own and implement it on their own. Maybe your team wants to go to a different school, study something different, go somewhere different, do a semester abroad. Maybe they want to go to a vocational school or a boarding school or do volunteer work or something totally different that we couldn't even think about. The only way you're going to come up with these types of out of the box solutions is to listen to the teenager, figure out what their issue is, what they don't like about the situation, and help them come up with possible ideas and then help them implement the ideas. I know there's a lot coming at you in this video, a lot of new skills to learn, a lot of new communication techniques. My goal here is not to attack you as a parent, but to genuinely be helpful and to facilitate more open communication between you and your teenager. If you want to learn more about any of the ideas discussed in this video, you can always check out the podcast, Talking to Teens. We have hundreds of episodes. We dive really deep into a lot of this kind of stuff, and we release new episodes every week. If you try some of the stuff in this video and it works for you or doesn't work for you, please leave us a comment. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Or if you find something else that works for your teenager that I didn't cover in the video, tell me about that too. And of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching and good luck with your lazy teenager.